stories. College university profs, what is the most memorable email you've gotten from a student? A few years back, I was working as a lab tech and I had an older student who really seemed to resent being taught by a 20-something fellow student. In the syllabus for this lab was a rubric all the TAs had agreed on. Part of the grade was always including units on numbers and we'd take off 1 point per unit missing. This student handed in a lab report with 0 units anywhere, so I followed the rubric and took off points. I expected her to come talk to me, since I told them every day to talk to me about any issues and I'd do my best to give back points wherever it could be justified. I try to be nice to my students because I get it. Labs suck and you don't have time to do everything perfectly. I didn't hear anything from her until the next lab was due. She emailed it to me and said, since it's apparently okay to take off an exorbitant amount of points for something as trivial as missing units, I'm not going to use units anymore. I have no clue what the heck compels a grown-butt adult to act like a 5-year-old. She eventually stopped attending labs and I have no idea what happened to her. A few years ago I was teaching a design studio for first-year students in our program. My boss had enacted a tough attendance policy from on high, as many of the freshman undergrads often tried to skip studio. Because of this, I frequently received requests to miss class for stupid things like football games and house parties, and the requests got more and more ridiculous as the semester went on. One day I was checking my work email and noticed a request to miss class that Friday because I am playing in the Quidditch finals this Saturday in Canada. Since it was Wednesday and our class was about to start, I decided to confront the prankster in class. I get to class and see the students crowding his desk. Well, apparently he knew I wouldn't believe him, so he brought his gear into class along with an album of photos of him playing Quidditch throughout high school. Now, I am a self-proclaimed Harry Potter fan and I felt so shamed that day I just let his absence slide. When he returned to class, he brought photos of his match and even though they lost the game, he seemed grateful that I didn't penalize him. Can confirm Quidditch is an actual thing. I went to exchange at University of Toronto and there's a serious varsity Quidditch team. Not a professor, but my professor did show us an email that was sent to him by a student about 10 years back and he kept her anonymous. The content of the email was basically she had to skip class and didn't know how to phrase it, so she said, "Sorry, I couldn't come to class, my fanny is on fire." End of email. This was a Tuesday-Thursday class, so she sent the email on Thursday and she sent another email Monday saying, "I will be attending class this coming Tuesday. I'm sorry about missing class, but the fire is out." She was strange. Sounds like athlete fanny. She needed some tough actin and actin. I was a TA for 1 semester in college. If anything, it taught me that I never wanted to be a teacher. When your students are the same age as you, they expect you will quickly cave in, and their excuses sound like they are citing references. That semester I had to fail one girl because she never showed up to the laboratory sessions, which was mandatory. Her excuses started pouring in about 3 weeks before the class ended. Here is her best line. Keep in mind, these are primarily students in the pre-med pre-dental programs. I have my period every week at the time that lab is scheduled, so it's been difficult for me to make it because of heavy menstruation. I know that this may not make you happy, but if you don't pass me, I'm going to have to take this to the head of the department and possibly to a lawyer because you are discriminating against women. So, I forwarded the email to the professor teaching the course. He emailed it to his boss. It made the rounds, gathered a few chuckles, and that was that. I ended up failing the serial menstruator and told myself I'd never teach again. Menstruator isn't a word, really? Yes, it is. I hope you told her to see a gynecologist for her chronic menstrual problems. This is an email chain from a student I don't think I ever actually saw. Can I get an extension? Double quote. You haven't turned anything all year. I'm not even sure if you've been to any classes. It's December. What possible reason could I have you giving you an extension? Double quote. I paid for the class, so I deserve the credit for it. You paid for the chance to learn. You chose to not take that chance. I look forward to seeing you next semester. Comma, you paid for the chance to learn. You chose to not take that chance. Freaking brilliant. Freshman composition class. I had a student stop showing up after the first couple weeks of class, but she didn't drop the class. About a week before the last possible drop date towards the middle of the semester, I emailed her telling her that because of how much class and work she had missed, there was now no chance of her being able to pass the class and she needed to drop while she still could. She responded with a long plea to please give her a second chance and swearing she could make up the work. By this point she had missed half the work in the class. I reminded her of the attendance policy that did not allow you to miss more than 3 classes without penalty to your grade and pointed out that she had missed 15 classes, which was a guaranteed F even if she did all the work, but she continued to plead with me well past the last drop date. I would receive an email every 2 or 3 days from her begging for a second chance, telling me that if she failed the class she would be forced to drop out, providing every excuse about how busy she was with work and family and continuing to insist that she was fully capable of making up the work. This went on for 6 weeks. I finally got so fed up with it that my last message to her told her that if she had put as much work into the class as she had to begging for a second chance, she never would have been in this position in the first place. That I was not going to respond to any more messages from her and that she could take it up with the director of composition if she didn't like it, who I had already discussed the issue with and he had my back. She was still on campus next semester, though I knew from the beginning that she was lying about being forced to drop out if she failed my class. The moral of the story: if you start to fall behind in a class, go to the professor straight away. Most professors are willing to work with you if you're upfront about what's going on. Vanishing and then coming back begging for a second chance is not going to put you on any professor's good side. I'm the assistant for a group of theoretical physics professors at a large university, so I get a lot of emails from students or prospective students looking to get in contact with a professor. This one kid emailed me, and then called me multiple times, asking if he could come in and just tell somebody about what he'd been working on. He kept saying, "Everything they know is wrong. What I know will change physics forever," and had a general hopped up on uppers tone. But he couldn't tell me anything specific about his research, so I knew we were going nowhere. Eventually, the way I got him to leave me alone was to say that no one will listen if you don't have a degree, and I pawned him off on admissions. It was annoying, but I also felt bad because it was obvious that he wasn't quite right mentally. Apparently this sort of thing is quite common. I am a physics librarian and I have heard that some long-serving physics librarians have a crackpot file where they put all the manuscripts from laypeople who are convinced that they have found Einstein's big mistake or whatever and want their magnum opus added to the university library. This isn't an email, but it's the most memorable student interaction in my 2 semesters TAing for a 300-person American literature survey class. Because of the large class size, the professor had the students sign up for a certain week to turn in their big term paper, so I averaged grading about 30 essays a week. Each week was connected to a specific author that the student had to write about. Week 1 Nathaniel Hawthorne, week 2 Walt Whitman. You get the idea. This one student signed up for the week where they had the option to write about either Harriet Beecher Stowe or Herman Melville. It appeared on the online sign-up page as week 6. Stowe, Melville. The student wrote her essay about a person named Melville Stowe, and I'm pretty sure the biographical details and literature references were a combination of Herman Melville and Walt Whitman. My friend turned in a final term paper on water chestnuts to her zoology class. There's one in every bunch. I was TA for an 80-person class and would proctor exams for my professor. One student would show up 30+ minutes late for every single exam. Then, when time was up, she would be the only student left taking the exam, and when I would try to collect it, I'd get no. I get extra time because I'm a SNAP student. Essentially she had some sort of learning disability, and she was permitted to take the exam in a separate location with extra allotted time if she set it up beforehand. Every time, I would explain this to her, tell her I had places to be, and take her exam away. Before the final, my professor told me she got an email from the girl's mother bitching about me not giving the girl adequate time to take the exams, and my professor told her that SNAP didn't apply, and if she wanted more time, she should show up to the exam on time. The mom apologized and said she'd talk to her daughter. Sure enough, on the day of the final, the girl shows up an hour late to the 3-hour exam and tries that same SNAP crap again. She failed the course with flying colors. She failed the course with flying colors. Oh snap. Assistant Professor, Biologist here. I do mostly field research in conservation, but I teach some bioinformatics courses as well. I had a student email me with a question about an upcoming assignment. A simple Perl program meant to be a component of a larger bioinformatics assignment for later in the semester, very late on the night before it was due, but also include a string of emails from him and several classmates discussing various possibilities for cheating on said assignment if they couldn't finish on time. In effect, he forwarded and added me when he meant to compose a new email, and my assumption was that he was frantically emailing friends and chugging coffee at 2 AM while trying to figure out how to complete the work. This was a group of fairly uninspired young minds, and in a way I was a bit sympathetic because I suspect a few of them were in over their head with the subject matter. Plus, well, nefarious or not, they were actually staying up late into the night trying to get things done. I hadn't been teaching very long at this point. I went to graduate school on a research fellowship, so I was never a TA and I was really unsure how to proceed. My university has a pretty hardcore student honor system run by students, and this kind of thing could earn someone a suspension or expulsion. I talked to my wife about it, and she suggested I wait and see if they actually followed through with the cheating before proceeding with any punishment. So, I simply replied to his email as if nothing at all were wrong, and waited. Assignments came in, and all of the guys involved earned pretty dismal grades with no evidence of any wrongdoing. So I'll let it drop without saying anything. I still wonder to this day if any, or all of them noticed the mass forward and spent days crapping their pants over it, and now just think I'm a totally clueless guy who didn't notice. But yeah, that may be the funniest, strangest email I've yet received. Dr. Wet Farts, Assistant Professor, checks out. Student here. We had to post on a website documents of our writings for critiques, so I accidentally clicked nude pictures and submitted. For a document it would prompt a cancel screen since it takes a few seconds to upload, but due to good internet connection and small file size of the image it was instantaneous. Also, the sidebar has a preview of all files uploaded, so by scrolling over it you see a nude picture of a vivacious Asian. My whole class is Asian and the teacher is a female. Also, the professor can only delete image files apparently. I upload 20 files just to put the image down at the bottom of the file queue. Then I had to send the awkward email to my professor. She responds and saying it was a mistake, no problem, and applauds my efforts to minimize the situation and had the courage to explain the situation in a formal manner. That teacher sure must be nice. Earlier this semester, a girl at my university made national news when she emailed her professor asking for her absence from the next class to be excused because she was celebrating a religious holiday. The holiday? Beyonce's birthday. Here's the transcript of the email. Good evening, Professor. I would like to inform you that I will not be in class today due to this holiday. On the 4th of September, 1981, the Lord blessed us all with the goddess that is Queen Beyonce Knowles Carter's birthday. Out of respect, I will not be attending class today, the Lord's Day. For any further questions, feel free to contact me. Have a blessed day and remember, Beyonce loves you, so bow down. Apparently the girl meant it as a joke and didn't actually mean to send it but clicked send by accident. Everyone, right now, go turn on the unsent feature in Gmail Labs. Student. But I was emailed by another student and it was pretty interesting. In our information security class we had just finished the chapter about Trojans, malware, and the likes. One of the things that is quite particular to this story is that we had just finished learning about phishing. Now, for those who do not know, phishing is sending bad links in an attempt to get a user, stupid is implied, to willing give up their username and password. Well, 2 days after our test on these bad files, a phishing attempt started going around the university. It was sent by a supposed student trying to get people to attach their university accounts to a study site. After you signed up, they would email everyone else in your classes about the supposed study session. Well, one of the kids in our information security class fell for it and gave them his username and password. One of the people emailed was the teacher. The teacher called him out during the next class for being a dumbass. Pretty sure he failed the test too. Hahaha, that's terrible. At least it was only the one guy, and now he's learned a lesson he will never forget. Live down. Not a prof, but we had a group project. We had a student named Matt in our group. After our initial meeting he stopped showing up to most our meetings. When he did show up, he would yell at us if any suggestions deviated from his ideas. Fast forward 1 month and we have a team case study due. He emailed the night before our first case analysis was due to ask us what case we were supposed to analyze. Needless to say, he never submitted his part and our group was up all night doing his part. We were fed up and decided to contact our professor to address our concerns. I will never forget his response. "I've removed him from your group, so please continue as a group of 4. As far as I'm concerned, he's dead to me. To this day, he is one of my favorite professors." I had a student who was pretty behind in the class. I wasn't faculty at the time but a student teacher lecturer. Anyway, in the last week before finals she asked me about extra credit. At that point it was already too late. So she emailed me saying that she would do anything for a few extra credit points. The implication was pretty clear. I wrote her back and nicely repeated that she was too late and just needed to focus on the final. That was the end of it, but I was glad when the semester was over. In case anyone is wondering, yes, she was very attractive, but I was in a committed relationship and would also never do anything that unethical. Please increase my grade from a C to a B. I'm on academic probation, and if I don't get a B, I'll be required to withdraw. If I am required to withdraw, my student visa will be revoked. If my student visa is revoked, I will have to return to my home country. If I have to return to my home country, I'll be forced into compulsory military service. If I'm forced into compulsory military service, I'll be sent to a border region, Kashmir. If I'm sent to a border region, I'll be killed. And it will be your fault because you didn't give me a B. I struggle to live with the guilt. I am not a prof, but I shared a name with one in our huge state school's business college who taught one of those large lecture hall classes. I got the usual "I was out and need notes" emails, which I kindly redirected to the real prof and disclosed the confusion to both parties. I got an email that I won't forget that was from a student asking for another chance at a test because he was too drunk to remember and had missed too much class up to that point. I emailed the guy back with something along the lines of "lols, you are so FUBA now," to which he never replied. I have always wondered what happened to him. My most outrageous email was from a graduate student who got a 0 on a quiz. The quiz was online and available to the students for a full week. The student simply didn't do it by the deadline. She emailed me saying it wasn't fair that she got a 0 because she forgot to take the quiz. I replied that all her fellow students had managed to remember to do it and I had reminded them in class to do the quiz. Her reply: "You should have sent an email reminder to us." Although I didn't respond to her, my internal response was, "I'm not your mom. Grow up and take responsibility for your actions." I will say, I take an online class, and I do wish that the system would generate a "hey, stupid, the quiz ends in 24 hours and you haven't taken it yet" email. The struggle is real sometimes. My god. People, I do have a reminder set. I'm only at A4 chemistry lab, but I try to take the time to relate to my students for the 3-4 hours I see them every week. I had a student a while back that worked hard, spoke intelligently, participated in class, and clearly had a chemical understanding that rivaled my brightest students. He was well liked by his lab partners, and overall just a good guy. Halfway through the semester, he started slipping in assignments. His quality of work took a nosedive. He started missing assignments, and was visible on the bottom end of an emotional scale in class. In spite of his efforts to hide it, I pulled him aside and let him know that I'd accept any assignments of his as long as he got them done by the end of the year, and if he needed to talk to someone, I was there. He never took me up on the talk, but he got all of his assignments in by the end of the year, and that was that. He sent me an email by the beginning of the next semester explaining the series of relationship and emotional issues that he'd been struggling with for the past few months. He talked about regrets he had for the semester, and then explained how thankful he was to have me as a TA, not because I made a huge impact on his grade, but because I came to help at a low point that helped him break the frustration. He said that life for him never stopped being great, but I helped him make it feel fresh again. It meant a lot. More than that, though, that I was able to help so much. TLDR. Student had rough semester. I cut him a small break. It meant a lot to him at just the right time. Ooh, I like this one. You're a good person. Not a prof, but was a TA. for him and we ended up being buddies after I was no longer a student. He had a girl that blatantly copied an essay. Like, it had that old time typeface from papers written in 1930. He showed everyone in the department. No one had to even read it to know it wasn't hers. Apparently she was also a subpar student at best and was in her 40s getting a degree, most likely for a promotion. No judgment. Just saying the paper wasn't her at all. Ray content. The prof looked and couldn't find it anywhere. So he had no other recourse than to give her a C for the class because he couldn't prove plagiarism. She was kept insisting it was hers even after being confronted with the evidence, and then stalked him for years. She would call his home, email him, telling him she would ruin him and blah blah blah, even after changing emails and phone numbers. Some people's kids, man. I got kind of a reverse memorable email story. I once had a very minor surgery, less minor than having your appendix taken out. I wasn't even put under for it, just something that caused me to miss a few days of classes. Well, we had a 5-person speech assigned to us the day I noticed something wrong. So I went to the clinic and they told me they would need to remove a cyst. Well, it's painful and I have to wait 4 days to remove it. It was a Friday, so I miss almost all of this thing. I emailed the professor, she was from India, and I'm making up all of my work. Like I'm researching stuff and planning out a 1-person speech for 5 people because I think that's what it's going to take to make this up. She had announced to the class that I had surgery and would be out for the foreseeable future. Huge mix-up of communication between me and her. At least that's what I thought. I was told by a few classmates afterwards that she made it sound like I was going in for a heart transplant. She sounded really concerned and told people to keep me in their thoughts. So when I came to class the next Friday, it was like a ghost returning. She acted like I had just gotten off the operating table. Why are you here? Shouldn't you be in bed? Absolutely one of the funnier moments I had in class and one of the nicest teachers I've ever had. That's adorable. I love professors that care about their students. I mostly teach introductory geology. One summer semester, I offhandedly said something about evolution in class. I don't remember how it got started exactly, but it touched off an ongoing email, and after class, dialogue with a Muslim student on evolution versus creationism. It was very enlightening for me because I had only ever encountered the Christian version of creationism. It was interesting to see the Islamic version. It was all very civil and mutually respectful. Both the student and myself learned a lot. Years later I got an email from this student. He told me about how our discussion had opened his eyes to his Navy and it led him to learn more about science. He ended up majoring in environmental science and was working on his MEs. He even had a question for me from a grad level sedimentology course he was in pertaining to grey wake. If I can get someone who's just in my class to fulfill a gen ed requirement to actually be interested in science, I feel I've done my job. Once every few years, I get a convert. A student who comes back and tells me they ended up in the earth or environmental sciences because of my course. But getting a person to change from Islamic creationism literalism to pursuing a career in science, that was almost scary. When I wrote the student back, I told him that I hoped he had found room in his life for his faith and science. When I was a student, I got an email from a professor that said has missed a lot of classes this quarter, and she came to me to ask you on her behalf if anyone would be kind enough to share their notes with her. Here is her email address. If you would like to email her your notes, she would appreciate it very much. I feel like what happened was she went to the professor and asked for help, and in an attempt to get rid of her he just said if the other students want to give you their notes that's up to them. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.